Good morning. This is Bill from Curious Cars and Auto House of Naples on I'm not going to keep going on about the weather. I really have been overdoing it lately. It sucks. It's going to continue to suck for a while. And that's all there really is to say about that. So we're going to hop right into this car. We're absolutely leap head first running into this car and not talk about the weather, birds, goats, anything else that, the truth is there just aren't any around. So if there was a goat nearby, obviously we'd be all over it. I haven't even seen a cat this morning, so it is a nice, proper, wildlife-free morning. There was a rabbit when I pulled in, but he looked pretty innocuous. He didn't appear to be up to any negative thing, so we just let him be, and here we go. So this is a 1984 Buick LeSabre. This is the limited version of the LeSabre, also the sedan version of the LeSabre. It's based on a B-Body platform, which was a pretty historic body for GM. In fact, it can date its roots all the way to 1926 with the Buick Master 6 and the Oldsmobile 30. Went through a series of 12 revisions over the next many decades and finished up in 1996 with the Buick Roadmaster, if you remember that thing, the Cadillac Fleetwood, and also the Chevy Caprice. So a very long-lived platform from GM and one of the most prolific in terms of the number of cars produced, millions and millions of cars, and with good reason, because it was a pretty phenomenal platform as the years went by. It was just absolutely fantastic. The LeSabre itself went through 8 different variations from new. It started out as a production car in '59, but much more interesting was the 1951 Buick LeSabre concept car, which was absolutely incredible. It's really, truly, probably one of the most significant and beautiful and important concept cars ever made. It was pushed by Harley Earl. He absolutely loved that thing, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But anyway, in '51, this thing comes out. It has a rear-mounted transmission. It has a turbocharged V8 up front that runs on either gasoline or methamphetamines, or methanol. It's got heated seats. It's got a 12-volt system. Most of them had 6 volts at the time. It had a water sensor for the electric convertible top. So if the sensor decided it was raining, it would actually put the top up for you. Pretty amazing stuff. Particularly in the early 50s, and also had a built-in jacking system. Not unlike, many decades later, the way Formula One did that. They'd pull in the pits, they'd hit the jacks, the car would rise, they'd change the tires. Well, in 1951, Buick had that on this LeSabre concept car, which was pretty impressive for the time. Most significantly, however, was the styling. It used, jet aircraft were becoming the thing by the time '51. Propellers were out, jets were in. Some people give the '51 LeSabre concept car credit for inventing the tail fin, which, who knows? Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. I think there were some fins on a '48 Cadillac, but they were more like the propeller job on the P-38 Lightning. But anyway, it had tail fins. It had a wraparound windshield, jet aircraft style. It had a stunning jet intake looking grille with hidden headlights that came behind it. They electrically popped up, and Dagmar bumpers, which were made more famous by later Cadillacs in the decade. So it was a pretty incredible car and pretty significant, and set the styling tone for many cars that would come after it. And when it was done with the concept car circuit, Harley Earl himself started driving the thing because he loved it. So I think it's in the GM Heritage Museum now, and still does some shows from time to time. But anyway, that was the first LeSabre of any kind, which, by the way, means the Sabre. As far as that being kind of a dumb name, that's up to you. But the first production one came out in '59. It replaced the Buick Special and became Buick's entry-level sedan based on the B platform. The mid-level sedan was the Invicta, and then the Electra and the Electra 225 topped out the list. So, by the way, that's also the origin of the Buick Tri-Shield. They'd been using a variation of this for many years. It was based on the Buick family's coat of arms. There goes the Kubota. So theoretically, the goats are still alive, but I don't know. But anyway, that is based on the Buick family's coat of arms, and it became the three shields in '59 to represent the three different levels of Buick. So fast forward through another, oh God, I don't know, well, 5 generations. This is the 5th generation. 1977 it started. It was the downsized B-Body. So one of the more significant generations of Buick because it, I don't know, it painted the future of General Motors, if you will. And it was one of the few downsized cars that worked and had success and that people really liked. All the 70s malaise shit was going on, your Jimmy Carter stuff, your Iran stuff, your gas crunch, your gas lines. Everybody was starting to get miserable and unhappy and cold in the winter and hot in the summer. And GM and Ford and Chrysler had to start building cars that theoretically didn't suck as much gas and would be more efficient going down the road. And yeah, that's what they did. More than maybe any other company, GM really knocked it out of the park in '77 with these B-bodies. People liked them. The people who liked bigger cars liked this. One of the reasons is, despite it being much, much shorter and much, much lighter, all the interior room remained the same. It really didn't lose anything, room-wise. And it was still body on frame. V8 power up front for the most part, rear drive, and the stuff that people liked. So it did work quite well for him. But here's the other thing too. It was also kind of the beginning of GM's. Not that it hadn't been going on for a while, but it got much, much worse. GM's platform sharing. I mean, if you put a Caprice next to a Buick LeSabre, next to a Oldsmobile Delta 88. It was pretty hard to tell the difference between them for a lot of people. If you remember, Fletch in that movie was chasing a car. He called it an Oldsmobile Buick. And, there's a lot of truth to that. And that was part of the issue that eventually led to trouble for GM and really killed their market share. It was kind of a shame. Decades before, most GM divisions really did have their own identity. They had their own motors, transmissions to some extent, certainly their own styling. There was the Firebird Camaro. There was other stuff like that. But it became and started to become much more blatant in the late 70s onward. 84, by the way, was a pretty interesting year. It really was. You had the 84 Olympics that were, I wanted to say they were in Los Angeles, and in fact, all Buicks had they were the official car of the 84 Olympics, so every one of them got a sticker. By the way, this thing is a 14,000-mile museum piece. We'll get into that, but everything is as it came, so we still have this sticker here, which is kind of cool. The Soviets did boycott that as a rebuttal to the United States and the West boycotting the 1980 Olympics that were in the Soviet Union. So we had that going on. Also in California, you had that first McDonald's shooting where like 20 people were shot, killed, more were shot, 38 shot, 20 killed. Big deal. And maybe, while it would be like third-page news today, it was a pretty big deal at the time. Also, the beauty queen killer was captured. He was an interesting cat and very selective in who he decided to capture and murder. You had that Union Carbide leak in India that apparently knocked out a bunch of people. Movies, 84 was really a pinnacle year for me. I mean, it really was. I was 13 years old or something. I was a kid. There was no internet. There were no cell phones. I rode my bike everywhere. We played arcade games and watched movies. I was old enough to like beer and pornography, but young enough to like, the Gremlins and Knight Rider. So it was just a key time in my life, and it was great fun, absolutely great fun. And I think in many ways, 84 was kind of a peak year for America as well. Of course, when you're a kid, you're not really into the politics, and I know there was a lot of contentious stuff going on, but I feel like for the most part, people in 1984 were all semi-chipper with each other. You had Reagan with the whole Morning in America thing. Everyone was focused in on making greedy money on Wall Street and such. And all in all, it seemed like a pretty nice time for the country. I think the internet ruined a lot of that because everybody just became a giant asshole. But who knows? But anyway, 84, when this car came out, it was getting very long in the tooth and near the end of its run. It would be replaced in 86 with a front-wheel drive platform, which is, one one that I remember quite well. I actually worked at a Buick dealership in 90 and 91, so I remember a few of these cars rolling through, but because dealerships tend to focus on newer cars, it was mostly the 6th gen that we had there, the replacement, the front-wheel drive stuff that we got. But it was also cool to see some Grand Nationals run through there, and I remember when the Riata and the Riviera, the front-drive stuff, the Riata came out while I was there, and that was kind of interesting. And also the Roadmaster came out, which was also the continuation of this B-Body platform. And from what I understand, Stempel, I think, was the GM chairman at the time. It was made over his dead body. He was firmly entrenched in the idea that GM was a front-wheel drive company and did not like that those things came to fruition. So anyway, I'm going to pause here for a minute and get my crap together, and then we're going to dive directly into this car. All right, so one of the reasons the B-bodies were so particularly beloved was they could be used for fleet duty. They were prolifically used by taxi cab companies and police organizations, I like that, and rental agencies, that sort of thing. They're full-sized car, very reliable, and plenty of room, and you'll see that as we start inside the trunk. Again, this thing is unbelievable. If you're in any idea looking for a B-body to put in your collection, look no further. Obviously I'm trying to sell the thing, but yeah, come look at it. You'll see what I'm talking about. Anyway, everything very nice back inside the trunk. A little bit annoying that they don't put a cover over the spare tire. Not sure if that's a cheap thing or maybe it got lost at some point, but I doubt it because this thing is so weirdly complete. This one did have the rust-proofing treatment. You can see all the spray that was done. To me, that's a little bit of a shame. I like it when they're, the way they were, but of course, the rust-proofing treatment is every bit as 84 vintage as the car itself, so dealers charged a shitload of money for that. When I worked at the Pontiac store a few years later, a friend of mine would don up this white suit and breather thing, pull a car up on a lift, spray the crap out of it with this industrial type undercoating, and I think we charged like $400 to the customer for it. It took them like 7 minutes and used 8 cents worth of materials, but dealers got to make a living. Here you see the original GM rubber mats. Those are kind of fascinating. I haven't seen any of those in 30 years. They're not all white and crusty. They look to be in great shape and part of that 14,000 mile thing. Here you see the build sheet sticker. If you were to decode that, it would tell you the equipment that came on this car. You have the jacking instructions that were obviously put on by an employee who really didn't give a shit, and then instructions for the wire wheel cover removal over there. So everything as it's supposed to be here inside the trunk. I'll have a look under the hood. The sun's coming out. It's about to ruin everything, but the hell with it. All right, so based on my research, and again, my memory doesn't serve me at all on this stuff other than in the most basic way, there were 4 different engines you could get under the hood of this thing. Somebody might correct me on that, but apparently there were 4. Standard was the 3.8 liter V6, which that was a pretty good engine, although a little bit too anemic for a car of this size. It went on to great fame and fortune down the road, and of course was also the engine that powered the Grand National to ridiculous quarter-mile times, at least for the 80s, and a pretty bulletproof thing. So it's not the end of the world if you see a 3.8 in one of these. There was also a 4.1 V6, and that's the one that I'm hazy on. I really don't remember seeing any of these cars with a 4.1 liter, but maybe they did have them. I know in the earlier coupe LeSabres you could get that 301 Pontiac, but I think that was long gone by 84. Then they had the optional 307 Olds, which this thing has, which I'm thankful for because it's the most terrific of the bunch, the best suited to this platform. The horsepower rating's crap, like 140 or something, but still has pretty good torque, still has V8 pull, and works pretty great overall. You can see it has that stand-up oil filler neck. That's kind of the easiest way to identify an Olds 307 or Olds motor in general. And anyway, The condition of this thing under the hood, Dalton didn't even open this hood to clean it. This is just the way the car came in, and that's the way we're going to leave it, because it's an absolute time machine. I don't know who had this car. I don't know who stored it or put it away or kept it over the years. I really wish I knew more about the original lineage of this thing, because it is epic. Look at the condition of this little crappy paper mache type hose that runs into the air intake in front of the radiator, a cold air intake, if you will. I mean, it looks like the day it came out of the factory, and that's not really easy to do on a car that's going on, what, 37 years old. Pretty impressive all around. So anyway, there it is. 307 Olds, made it to a 3-speed Turbo-Hydra trans. I think 3. I don't think we're at 4 in 84. God, you know, there's my research for you. I didn't even notice as I'm driving it around, but we'll check it. But I'm pretty sure it's a Turbo-Hydra transmission under the behind the motor in this thing, turning in pretty reliable shifts. Check out the condition of like the headlight trim and the bumper. I mean, every once in a while you just get a car, and look at the way the black still mostly exists behind the Buick badge there, and the way that no bugs have etched into the bumper over time. It's just incredible sometimes to find a car where you just can't imagine how and why it got kept in this condition. Even the wire wheel covers aren't, you know, it's not like they've been cleaned and you see all the dirt and crust and guck back in the back. I mean, they're like perfect, and I don't know. Some cars are supernatural, and this is one of them. I did see that it has this little Antique Automobile Club of America sticker on it, so the guy who owned it obviously knew how to keep a collectible car, and did so with this one. So why he picked an 84 Buick, I have absolutely no idea. You know, you'd expect to see I don't know, an Austin Healey or, you know, some sort of Hispano Suiza, but for some reason this guy chose an 84 LeSabre. LeSabre, I don't know, whatever. I also like the little drip rails up here over the top of the windows. These are aftermarket. They probably haven't been available for 40 years or 30 years anyway, so I debated whether or not to take them off, but I think they're part of what tells the story of the car, so I left them on. If you want to take them off, you can. All right, here in the back. Now, this is a limited version, which is the upscale. The custom was the entry-level LeSabre. The limited added a few more bits and pieces, like this rather lovely-feeling gray velour in this car. You can see it's all very nice and soft and supple. It's button-tucked. Your Canadians are going to be in heaven back there. You fit 3 of them with no issue. You do have a tranny. You do have a transmission hump in the middle, but yeah, it's not too big, and you'll be able to straddle it okay. I love the big acres and expanses of fake wood up at the top of the door panels. Hilarious with the little grippy pulls beneath it. An ashtray, because of course people were still smoking then. Grab handle, power window switch, little bits of chrome. You know, is it the most expensive and well put together shit? No, not really, but it's not bad. It's not super cheap. So you did get a little bit of extra something for your limited. Also, when you look at the scuff plates and that stainless trim on the bottom, you can see a lot of animals have not dragged their feet across that over time, and it's just fascinating to get a view of a car that's in this preserved condition. You really can feel like what it was like to have a new one. You can also see it still has a little bit of the original plastic protector strip that would have covered this thing when it came from the factory. And the Canadians in the back, they do get a couple of pockets. They're not very substantial in terms of what they'll hold. I think they'll sag if you put a big gun in there. But if you put something, you know, lightweight, like a, I don't know, a FN57 or something, nice light gun, you could get them in there and they probably won't stress the fabric too much. Have a look up front. I tell you what we're going to do, actually. I'm going to stop, pull it up to my spot up there, get my crap in the back, and then when we hop in, we can just go. All right, so now we can just hop in. Before we do, underneath this car, behind those wire wheel covers, you've got front discs, power assist, of course, rear drums, presumably. I doubt very much it would have had discs at this point. You've got coil springs at the four corners, gone were those leaf springs of days past. You got a sway bar of sorts, and, the thing handled pretty good. And again, that's why the police liked them. That's why taxi companies used them. It wasn't just a space thing. It was also the way they performed. They felt and drove nice, like a big car should, but were still very manageable. There you see the LeSabre Limited badge on the side, everything looking proper, all the fillers around it looking nice. This is a real time machine, this car. Up front, the continuation of the door panel theme with the, if they really did use this much real wood in them, there'd be no rainforests left at this point, because, of course, in the 80s, that was only, only the hippies cared about that crap. Anyway, I'm sure everyone did. But anyway, all the nice little trimmy bits in the Limited, and power mirrors that are cunningly designed to look like manual mirrors. Here you see all the original switch gear, that classic chrome GM look with those locks that sound like they were some sort of U.S. World War II military surplus as hard as they pull down the plunger. It's miraculous. Little chrome grippy thing there, and little place to tug your door shut. And again, the condition of the all that stuff is just remarkable. Body by Fisher. Yeah, I love it. Here's another thing I love, this gorgeous little tiny steering wheel. I mean, this to me is so American car, and it's so long gone. You don't see anything like this anymore, with the little wood inlay, fake wood. Nice big proper train horn under there. And let's get it fired up and get some AC going. I'm already fogging up. This car was late enough to have this electronic climate control, which was exciting to me because it's the same one I had in my 85 Riviera. And nice to see it working. Dalton didn't, of course, wipe it down, so it's all covered with fingerprints and stuff. That's great. But anyway, we'll put auto on there and low fan and get a little bit of chilly air coming. Here you can see the most simple of instrument clusters. You have your fuel gauge over there on the right. You have your PRNDL in the middle. You have your 85 mile an hour speedo with 55 in day glow, because that's, of course, the law of the land at the time. And you see just 14,449 miles on the clock. And if you think it's 114, look at the Carfax. It'll blow your mind. So it really is that much of a survivor. You can see from the way the dash is, all the stitching and stuff, everything nice and tight. It really is awesome to get in a car of this vintage that's this well preserved, because it makes you feel how it felt to have one when they were new. Being the Limited, you do get a tilt wheel, nice stuff. Look at the hieroglyphics on the cruise and wiper switch here. A lot of nitwit detailers use harsh chemicals to clean makeup off of those. It gets all caught in there from ladies and end up wiping away all the lettering. It's still nice and perfect on that one. There's the Tri-Shield logo facing you again. Of course, your climate control. Here's your row of idiot lights, which would light up if we had problems. This one, it didn't have much of an optional radio, just the Delco AM/FM stereo with commercials, so why bother? And where the cassette would go, it has your memory feature, and of course an ashtray that I very much doubt has been used, and it hasn't, so this guy wasn't a smoker. More LeSabre Limited stuff on the acres of wood on the dashboard. You got your rear defog here, no center console. You've got a split 60/40 bench seat with driver power and a little flip-up armrest, so a 6-passenger sedan, which of course predates the SUV. When they stopped making this thing, cars like this, big rear drive 6-passenger cars, everybody missed the ride and they went to pickup trucks and SUVs. Got ourselves rolling forward. I do like looking down over that expansive hood and seeing the Buick logo up there. I like the simple rearview mirror here that's in perfect shape. Reminds me that it's probably the same one that was in my Firebird. And of course you have a couple of light up sun visors, vanity mirrors, whatnot. I don't think you have one on the passenger side, which is kind of strange. You'd think you'd have that one there instead of on the driver's side. I don't think this car was necessarily made for ladies. You also have just a very simple control over your headlights, which suits me just fine. All right, I'm going to pause because I've seen the windshield already and the lights, and I know how crappy it is. So when we get to the end of the road, I'll pick it up and we'll go for a drive. All right, so nice and smooth. There's not really much of a point in hammering this thing. I mean, it's capable of what it's capable of, which isn't breakneck acceleration. What it does best is just give you a nice, smooth boulevard ride with enough V8 torque to not make you feel like you're lacking. So goes down the road pretty friggin' incredible. You know, what can I say? I mean, this is one of the few cars. It came in with freezing air conditioning. We didn't have to do anything with that. That's a rarity. I was really worried about the tires with 14,000 miles. I was sure they were going to be original or at best replaced 20 years ago, but they're pretty fresh Toyos on here. So some guy was keeping this in driver condition. Toyos are about the only 15-inch wheel you can still get that have white walls and look vintage. I mean, they're pretty much it. I think there might be a Hankook out there, but I'm not sure. But I know we have a set of Toyos on the shelf that we bought for a town car we never ended up with. So they were the only white walls I could find, and presumably this guy ran into the same issue. Again, you know, you've got this over-assisted power steering. You've got this tiny little steering wheel that's kind of lovely in its own way. There's nothing sporty about this car. They're not trying to make you feel like you're on the Nürburgring in a race car. This is just true cruising American luxury, middle-class, upper luxury, you know, bankers and doctors and that sort of thing. I don't know, maybe they're in the Electras, but maybe not. Certainly accountants. This is very much a, you know, a successful accountant's car in 1984. And it's not trying to be more than it is. It's just trying to give you a lovely, classic ride. I mean, this is what your grandparents probably had in 84. And let me tell you something. I mean, those guys had 70 years of experience at that point, you know? They're not idiots. They know what they're doing. You know, while your dad's running around in these celebrity Eurosports with anemic little four-cylinders pushing the front wheels and, you know, trying to look like they could have bought a BMW, your granddad's riding in style. You know, he's running over bumps without feeling them. He's floating down the highway, giggling the whole way on the way to the golf course to, you know, try and pick up the cart girl. So believe me, you know, those guys really know what they're doing. That's why all the old people drive town cars and such. They know where it's at. So don't write them off. And that's what this is for. And then, of course, it competed directly with the Panther platform from Ford, you know, like the Crown Vics and in larger incarnations down the road, the town car and such. And I think the B platform, this one, had it all over the Panther. I mean, not by much, but enough. It was a better platform. The Panther was great, and I loved the Panther, but I think the B had it. The reason the Panther won is they kept building it. When the B platform went away in 96, finally, they kept running the Panther platform for another 14 years, and all the fleet services, police, everyone else had to switch over, and gone were the Caprice police cars and Buick taxis and that sort of thing. So Ford won just by its staying power. This is great. I love sitting in this tray. I just friggin' love it. You know, if you don't want to do the jerk merge, then this is what you have to do. And whatever, I don't know. I could do a whole dissertation, a whole video on how shitty people seem to drive these days, and we could certainly have a video just alone on interstate etiquette, but that's for another time. So anyway, here it is, 1984 Buick LeSabre Limited, 14,000 miles, white over gray, very simple, elegant, lovely car that's been maintained. This is in original condition. It has to be of the last 200 cars that I've seen. This is top 3 in terms of preservation. It's a miracle. It's supernatural. It's creepy how nice this thing is. Really unbelievable. And I'm very happy to have it. I've had a lot of fun driving it this weekend. So anyway, there it is. That's it for me. If you're interested in the car, it will be for sale at Auto House of Naples, 239-263-8500, on the web at autohousenaples.com. unquestionably.com. Still have lots more fun stuff coming up. Still a few more cars to do. Tomorrow, if I get my shit together, we might do a Duster. Haven't seen one of those in years either. And some other stuff around the corner. So thank you very much for watching. Appreciate it. And we will see you with the next one. Take care.